So let's get it started. Garrick, why don't you come on up, tell everybody what's going on.
All right. Thanks, Matt. Good morning. Thanks, everyone, for having me. So my job here today is to tell you what's going on with the big picture economy, how it factors down to the Bay, and to keep that within 20 minutes so I don't drone on like I did last year for a good half hour plus, which gives me the challenge of where to begin. Certainly, there's been a lot of big economic stories in the news lately. Policy clarity, taxation increases, fiscal cliff, debt ceiling 2, the sequester, slowing Asian growth, Eurozone recession, flat wages, improving but slow employment growth, and continued lingering high unemployment. But none of those, even though they've dominated the headlines, are as important as what's really developed as our major story over the past year, something that I'm not sure that really has been covered in the news. I'm sorry, I'm having a little problem with my... But the big story of the past year is housing. Now, this is finally getting out. People are starting to see it, and certainly all the eggheads out there, this is something we've been tracking. New home sales went up 9% in 2012, the first increase since 2006. This is huge because if you look at the marketplace, Northern California has been a huge beneficiary of that. Recently, Realtor.com published their statistics for December 2012. It's the latest data available. They track about 150 markets in their MLS, which is the most comprehensive MLS that's out there. The most expensive market, surprise, for single-family retail is San Francisco. Our average home price here is $749,000. Number 2 on the market was San Jose. And in San Jose, the current average price is $562,000. Believe it or not, Oakland made number 11 on the list. Now, saying that the Bay Area is an expensive place to live, yeah, no kidding. That doesn't really tell you the real story. The real story is the year-over-year change in average home prices. San Francisco was 3rd in the nation for that improvement, 25%. San Jose, 4th in the nation, 24%. Oakland, 7th in the nation, 17%. And believe it or not, my hometown of Sacramento led the nation with a 42% improvement. Of course, we got nailed with losing home values in the range of 55 to 60% depending. So we had a big valley to climb out of. But the news is that values have increased. They've increased because inventories have declined. If you look at the decline in existing inventory of housing on the market, it ranks 1, 2, and 3. San Francisco, San Jose, Oakland, the greatest declines year over year. We're talking about, in San Francisco, a decline of over 40% in 1 year's time. Now, what does this tell us? It tells us that that shadow inventory that's been hanging out over the economy for years is finally going away. That's why prices are up. 8.3%, the largest increase again since 2006. And we finally saw an increase in sales again, first time since 2006. This is the biggest indicator, though, to keep an eye on. The existing inventory of homes in the United States is now 5.9%, or 5.9 months. This is the lowest level it's been in 10 years. We have a housing shortage developing. And this is critical. When we went into this downturn, it was driven by housing, and we were never going to fully get out of this downturn until housing returns. Certainly, the economic numbers, GDP, the technical definition of recession, that's been behind us for a couple of years now, but we've been dealing with year after year of substandard and even stagnant growth. If you look at the new home sales forecast that we've put together, look at the decline that we saw percentage-wise, just dropping off from a peak of 2005 till recently. Well, we see that changing going forward, possibly of 2 million units being sold over the next couple of years. Developers are coming back into the fold. Our new home starts are now at the same level that they were at in early 2008, before the financial meltdown, when we were going on the downside of the curve. Those numbers are only going to increase. As far as building permits nationally, US is up by over a third, and California, even though we were one of the hardest hit markets, we're up almost 30%. But look at San Francisco, 65% increase. Now, a lot of that is multifamily, and we know the multifamily market here is completely and totally on fire, and there's a ton of cranes going up. But San Jose even beats those numbers. But it's not just all based in the multifamily sector. Certainly the East Bay, there's a little bit of improvement as well. The real question is, this last year of positive growth, is it sustainable? Well, I want you to think about something. You know, there's a birth in the US every 8 seconds, but there's a death only every 12 seconds. And we continue to have a new citizen migrating here at the rate of more or less about 2 per minute. This growth rate has not changed in 22 years. So the last 22 years, we've continued to grow at this same pace of about 2.1 million new citizens per year. But if you look at household formation, and this is a real simple demographic. This is people who immigrate here, create a new household. It's people growing up, moving out of their house, starting a new household. Look at the numbers over the last few years. That line across the way, that's at 1.2 million. The actual average over the last 20 years has been between 1.2 and 1.3, but I wanted to be conservative on this. Going back to 2007 onward, we are dealing with a deficit of 3.5 million households that were not formed, even though the population was growing. Now, we're not going to become Italians. We're not going to suddenly have 3 generations under the same household. We're not having a huge cultural shift. We're having a little bit of cultural shift, but if you even just forecast, say, that pent-up demand, instead of 3.5, let's go conservative again, 3 million. That attached to the current rate of growth for household formations basically plays out to almost 2 million new households being formed, and this is based on a long slope by 2018. That might actually occur at a faster rate. What's it mean? Well, again, we weren't going to come out of this until housing was back. Housing typically accounts for 15 to 25% of total GDP annually. It's been missing in action for going on 6 and 7 years now. It is going to come back. Now, I don't think it's going to come back this year, because this is going to be a year of ramping up, but I see us getting back to 3% GDP rate, which is normal, which it's been a long time since we had the luxury of just normal. I see 3% by next year. And there's a whole other things that come with that. You know, we lost 8.8 million jobs in a recession. 2.2 million were construction, and almost none of those have come back. If we look at the current rate of job growth, we averaged, 181,000 jobs per month in job creation last year. In order to keep up with population growth, generally you need about 125,000. So that's why we've had that slow decline in unemployment. Plus, we also had some discouraged workers leaving the marketplace. We also had a lot of retirees leaving the marketplace. That helped unemployment numbers. But the real key here is that if we just assume that same rate of job growth, but what I see is a potential for at least 1.1 million in new jobs in the construction sector over the next couple of years, we're talking about an unemployment rate getting below the 7% mark by the end of 2015. That's huge because, add it all up, 6.3 million jobs between the two sources. That's the beginning of a new virtuous cycle, which is economists speak for things are good. It means people getting back to work. It means people spending more money. It means all sectors of the economy feeling a boost. And so this housing kickstart, it's not just about the housing sector. It's definitely about retail. Obviously, retail always has followed the rooftops. But we're talking about improved job growth. We're talking about an improved banking and finance sector. Certainly, there's all sorts of issues that remain out there, and certainly when it comes to new home sales, lending is an issue. But here's something else to keep in mind. Even though our home sales rate went up 9% last year, the average Joe out there doesn't know that housing really is returned yet. There's an awful lot of people that have held off buying till markets hit bottom. Once that sense is permeated the marketplace, you're going to see a lot more people going out to purchase homes that can. So those numbers are going to go up. More jobs in mortgage lending, more jobs in banking, more jobs in residential real estate, more jobs at title companies. But for retail, what this means, furniture stores, do-it-yourself retailers, hardware, those guys, their fortunes are directly related to the housing market. I don't see them back in the market in any big numbers this year, but by next year, we might see Lowe's hiring back real estate staffs, getting on the move again. Probably not at the same type of rate of growth, say Lowe's and Home Depot did in the last run-up, but those guys will be back in the market. We're already seeing some furniture chains that are looking that way. We're also looking at, probably the most important key is retail development. Retail development has largely been missing in action the last couple of years. It's going to be coming back. But more importantly than anything else, consumer spending. Typically, when home prices increase, for every dollar they go up, looking back over the last 30 years, we put this together with our chief economist, Kevin Thorpe, out of Washington, D.C., every dollar increase in home price values equates to about a 5-cent increase in consumer spending. So again, rising tide lifting all boats. Obviously, we've been dealing with this new frugality for the last few years. We've seen the middle-class shopper downsize. At the beginning of the recession, we saw Whole Foods customers going to Walmart. Now, the luxury shopper's been back for a couple years, which has led to this kind of bifurcation in the marketplace. Across all retail sectors, when you look at growth, it's been driven by the luxury guys, the discount guys, but the retailers in the middle, the mid-price point guys, regardless of sector, whether we're talking even down to restaurants, casual dining, but apparel, you name it. Anybody in the middle has been pinched. This new frugality I see lessening by 2016. Consumers will start to open up their pocketbooks a lot more. There is one challenge, though. Some of the problems that retailers have faced as far as competition from the discounters and a more frugal marketplace will simply be supplanted by the influence of e-commerce. It's not going to impact all sectors of the retail marketplace, but the numbers, you can't deny it. E-commerce is going up 10% per year, and Deloitte recently did a project where they forecast 30% of all retail sales being online, mobile, by 2025. It's impacting all areas of the retail marketplace, and it's already impacting growth. Every year in April, we do a report that's called the Retailer and Restaurant Expansion Guide, and we track the planned growth of over 3,000 different national chains, from restaurants to theaters, entertainment, you name it, every sector of retail. Right now, 42% of the growth requirements we're tracking throughout the U.S. for the next year are restaurants. Basically, if you factor this down to just service-related, food-related, including restaurants and grocery, we're talking about 60% of the growth requirements coming from service and food. That's critical because they don't compete as directly with the internet. And that's going to be the new face of retail expansion to a certain degree for quite a while. So what are we looking for as far as growth through 2015? We're still going to see contraction from mid-priced retailers. I'm very bullish about the housing market and it carrying over to the retail marketplace, but I don't see this changing. Luxury retailers back and discounters are everywhere and they're all on the move. We will see, however, with improving fundamentals, the return of mom and pops. We've already started to see it in the Bay Area. Partly it's because we're such a stronger market economically, but keep in mind, most of the mom and pop retailers, when they start up their initial line of funding, home equity loans, they're not going to come back in full force until housing prices have improved, till people have equity again. That's starting to develop. Now, luckily here in the Bay Area, we just have hit a home run as far as nailing all the preferences as far as what retailers want. The expanding retailers in the marketplace, they want dense urban demographics. They still want urban over suburban. They want higher than average income levels, and they want low unemployment. And on all three counts, we're doing better than just about any other market out there. So our panel is going to start naming names, but here's just some of the categories that are going to be growing, continue to grow in the coming year. And here's kind of our list, our laundry list of the concepts that you will see continuing to shrink. But something you should keep in mind with this is that although many of these have been pinched by the economy, most of these, this is more a reflection again of the growing influence of e-commerce. So what are we looking at for the year ahead? All those risks that I listed at the beginning, all those continuing potential downsides, political issues hanging out there, gas prices, which, let's face it, every time the economy shows signs of life, suddenly there's a reason, excuse, whatever you want to call it. I don't call it supply and demand. I call it because we can, but gas prices go up. That's going to still be there. These things are going to impact us and keep growth relatively flat this year as far as overall economy. But the return of housing is going to outweigh all of this by the end of the year and certainly heading into next year. As far as retail properties, across the U.S., the trend is going to be pretty much the same. Continued slow declines in vacancy, continued slow increase in rental rates. In the Bay Area, though, our vacancy isn't going to decline all that much because we don't have much vacant space. Our biggest problem is the availability of quality space. So our rates are going to escalate quite more rapidly than we're going to see at the national level. Retailer growth is going to stay basically the same, although I think it's going to start to tick up by the end of the year. And I think we're going to start to see huge changes with retail development. Not only that it comes back. You know, the last few years, there's been basically very little built. The exception have been outlet malls and a few regional malls that were a long time in the works. Now, I think the outlets are going to continue to be built, although we're probably in the 6th inning of that game. But what we're going to see with housing returning, we are going to eventually see within the next 18 to 24 months the return of neighborhood centers, neighborhood development. I don't think you're going to see as much power center development simply because so many of those core tenants they deal with are the guys who are either downsizing or they're dealing with the internet. And certainly when it comes to major centers, lifestyle, mall centers, entertainment is going to be key. Turning the shopping experience into a true experience to compete with e-commerce will be critical. So you're going to see a continued emphasis on food uses, entertainment uses, which we're going to be talking about a little bit more in the program. But ultimately, the long-term plans, the long-term outlook to keep an eye out on is going to be about e-commerce, its impact on bricks and mortar. They can live together, but there's going to be a lot of changes in the way we operate our shopping centers in the future. And certainly, boxes are going to continue to shrink for now, and we've got right now a revolving door going on with the grocery store sector. We have an awful lot of small concept groceries coming in, and there's going to be consolidation among some of the larger grocery users. But ultimately, the good news is, with housing coming back into the fold, we will see a boost across all sectors of the economy, and this new frugality, the penny pinching that's been going on, it may still be another 3 to 4 years off, but it is going to slowly fade. So with that, I'll go ahead and give it back to Matt. Thank you.